ever wonder how, like, one event can just totally reshape your life?
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So today, we're going deep into the story of Mike Torres,
Okay.
who claims he experienced police brutality,
Mm.
not once, but twice,
Wow.
years apart.
Okay.
We'll be looking at Mike's emails detailing these events to try and uncover the lasting impact they've had on him.
Yeah, so we're dealing with a first-hand account here.
Right.
I mean, Mike's words give us a raw and unfiltered look at how these events affected him emotionally.
Exactly.
Man.
Yeah, so let's start in 1996.
Okay.
Mike's a high school student in Killen, Texas,
Mm-hmm.
and he's walking to lunch when a fight breaks out.
Okay.
He points it out to the school resource officer, Officer John Bowman,
Okay.
and continues on his way.
Just a witness then.
Yeah, just a witness.
Got it.
But then Mike claims Officer Bowman elbows him in the head,
Oh, wow.
knocks him down,
Jeez.
and repeatedly slams his head against a window and a table.
Oh, my God.
Mike says the officer only stopped when he yelled, "Police brutality."
Like that power dynamic.
Wow.
You know, high school student
Yeah.
against an armed police officer.
Totally.
It's a stark contrast, you know.
Yeah. And what's disturbing is that Mike alleges a cover-up by the school and police department following the incident.
Really.
Yeah.
So instead of offering support,
Right.
Mike claims they conspired against him and his brother.
Yeah.
I think about that for a second.
I know.
What could that kind of betrayal do to a young person's trust in authority figures?
It's huge.
It's a huge question, right?
Yeah.
It really raises a significant question about the potential long-term psychological effects of feeling silenced and betrayed by those in power.
Absolutely.
Like imagine that, you know,
Yeah.
you're silenced and betrayed by the people who are supposed to protect you.
Right.
That's got to be devastating.
It's a lot, and Mike claims the school pressured him to drop out.
Oh, wow.
And he believes they only let him graduate to keep things quiet.
I'll sweep it under the rug.
Yeah. So
Right.
he was forced to endure his senior year in this really hostile environment.
Can you imagine?
Imagine carrying that burden.
Yeah.
Not just the physical trauma, but the emotional weight of feeling unsupported and silenced.
And it's no surprise that this experience left its mark on him.
Right.
Later in life, Mike was diagnosed with PTSD, manic depressive disorder, and IED.
Yeah.
He believes that this incident with Officer Bowman was a direct contributor to those mental health challenges.
It's a crazy example of how one single event can have a ripple effect across a person's life.
Absolutely.
So fast forward to 2023.
Okay.
Mike is living in Fort Worth, Texas,
Mm-hmm.
and he's really attached to his Mazda RX-8.
Okay.
He's constantly checking on it because he lives in an area that he considers unsafe.
So he's a little bit paranoid, I guess.
A little bit, yeah.
Okay.
So one morning, he spots a man slumped over in a Camaro, a needle hanging out of his arm.
Oh, my gosh.
So this is where we see Mike's willingness to reach out to authorities for help. Okay.
He calls for a welfare check on the man,
Mm-hmm.
who it turns out was overdosing on heroin in a stolen car.
Oh, wow.
So knowing how he reacts around police,
Yeah,
especially after that high school experience,
right.
Mike decides to leave the scene
Makes sense.
and go for a ride on his scooter.
He's trying to, like, avoid a potential trigger.
Yeah, it's like he's trying to avoid a potential trigger. You
Yeah,
know?
like he's trying to protect himself.
Yeah.
It's sad that someone would feel the need to distance themselves from a situation where they've done the right thing.
Exactly.
You know,
It's sad
like he
though.
called for help,
He did the right thing.
but he feels like he has to leave.
Yeah.
It's just sad.
So when Mike gets back to his apartment,
Yeah.
his neighbor tells him that a police officer has damaged his prized RX-8.
Remember how protective Mike is of his car?
Right.
Like this damage
Oh, yeah.
becomes symbolic of a larger issue, like
Yeah.
disrespect and violation. You know,
Totally.
it's a big deal to him. And the officer, Officer Charles, allegedly responds with verbal abuse when Mike confronts him about it.
Really?
Yeah.
So instead of addressing the damage,
Right.
he's just like being rude.
Yeah, Officer Charles allegedly tells Mike to shut up and calls him a B.
Oh, wow.
So put yourself in Mike's shoes,
Okay.
already carrying the baggage of that past trauma.
Yeah.
How would you react?
I mean, being spoken to in that manner
Right.
would feel like a direct attack on your dignity.
Yeah,
Especially considering the context of his previous experience.
absolutely.
It's important to consider how past trauma can inform someone's reactions in the present.
Yeah. So Mike ends up getting into a heated argument with the officer,
Uh-oh.
and as he goes to check the damage, things escalate dramatically.
Oh, no.
He claims Officer Charles punches him in the face.
What?
So there's some uncertainty here about whether it was a grab or a punch.
Okay.
Mike mentions a third video that could clarify this initial contact.
So there might be another side to this story.
Yeah, this is just based on Mike's account, you know?
Right, we're relying on his perspective.
Right.
There may be other interpretations of the events.
Yeah, it's okay.
Absolutely.
Right.
But according to Mike,
Mm-hmm.
he punches back after being hit,
Okay.
and a full-blown fight ensues.
Oh, my gosh.
During the fight, Officer Charles allegedly bites Mike's finger.
What?
Breaking it?
Oh, my God.
This level of violence is disturbing.
I know.
And raises serious questions about the use of force.
Absolutely.
You know, the broken finger adds this visceral element to the story and speaks to the intensity of the altercation.
Yeah, it really does.
To free himself, Mike claims he poked the officer in the eye,
Wow.
at which point the officer yells for someone to tase him.
This just shows how quickly a disagreement can escalate
Right.
to a situation involving serious force.
Yeah, it's a stark reminder of the power dynamics during these interactions with law enforcement.
Absolutely.
So following this,
Yeah.
Mike is arrested and charged with assaulting an officer.
Oh, wow.
He claims the police never took his statement.
And the only one on record is Officer Charles's.
So his side of the story isn't even being documented.
Yeah, and it just says assault on an officer.
This lack of documentation from Mike's perspective raises concerns about due process.
Right.
Yeah, it highlights the potential for his side of the story to be overlooked or dismissed.
Yeah.
It's really concerning.
Totally. And adding to this troubling situation, Mike claims his hospital records are missing.
What?
Even though he was transported by ambulance for his bite wound.
So there's no record of his injuries.
Yeah.
This missing information creates a significant gap in the evidence
Right.
and fuels a sense of injustice. You know,
It does.
it's difficult to get a complete understanding of the events and potential misconduct when key pieces of documentation are absent.
Yeah.
Like, how can you even begin to investigate this properly without all of the information?
Right.
It's just not right.
Yeah.
It's just not fair.
No, it's not.
And it just makes you wonder what else is going on here.
Yeah.
You know?
Totally.
Is this on record? Well, that was fast.
We can start a record.
Okay.
You heard what I said. Get the fuck away from me. You hit my car with that fucking door.
Oh, shit. Hold on.
Bitch! Who the fuck you hitting on, bitch? You fucking piece of shit! Hey,
It feels like a pattern of silencing is emerging here.
Right.
First, the alleged cover-up in high school, and now missing medical records and a lack of statement from Mike in the Fort Worth incident.
You've hit on a crucial point.
Yeah.
These instances could contribute to a feeling of powerlessness.
Right.
Like the system is working against him.
Exactly.
This lack of agency can be incredibly damaging,
Yeah.
especially for someone already grappling with mental health challenges stemming from a previous traumatic encounter with law enforcement.
Absolutely. This whole situation becomes even more complicated when you learn about Mike's previous encounter with Officer Charles
Oh, really?
a few months before the fight.
Okay.
So this incident reveals a pre-existing bias.
Interesting.
Neighbors were shooting BB guns near Mike's car, and when Officer Charles arrived, he allegedly immediately accused Mike of having a mental breakdown.
Wow.
It's like he was already jumping to conclusions about Mike's state of mind before even assessing the situation.
That's a really insightful observation.
Yeah.
It suggests that Officer Charles might have approached the situation with preconceived notions about Mike,
Right.
potentially influenced by societal stigmas surrounding mental health.
Right.
This initial judgment could have colored their subsequent interactions, creating a foundation of mistrust and antagonism.
And it didn't stop there.
Oh, no.
Mike says that Officer Charles challenged him to a fight,
Seriously?
which he almost accepted
Wow.
before other neighbors intervened.
Oh, my gosh.
He then called the officer's supervisor to report the incident
Okay.
and was warned that if he ever punched the officer, he would be charged with assault.
That's just adding fuel to the fire.
Right.
This detail adds another layer of complexity to the narrative.
Totally.
It suggests a potential pattern of provocation on the officer's part. Knowing Mike's history and potential triggers, was Officer Charles intentionally pushing his buttons,
Right.
perhaps anticipating a reaction that would justify an arrest?
It's a troubling possibility.
Yeah.
This prior encounter casts a shadow over the later fight and makes you question whether Officer Charles might have been predisposed to escalate the situation,
Right.
given his prior interactions with Mike.
It definitely raises some red flags.
Absolutely. And this
Yeah.
brings us to a fascinating detail Mike shared.
Okay, I'm listening.
He mentioned having a conversation with several officers, including Officer Charles, about his PTSD stemming from police brutality.
Wow. So he was open about his past trauma.
He was.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And Mike claims that while the other officers were understanding, even apologetic,
that's good.
Officer Charles was dismissive and aggressive.
Oh, wow. That's a shame.
Yeah, it's like he had no empathy for Mike's experience.
Right.
Or the deep-seated trauma he carried from his past encounter with law enforcement.
This contrast in reactions is incredibly revealing.
It is.
It underscores the point we were discussing earlier about individual biases within law enforcement.
Right.
Even within the same department, you can have wildly different attitudes towards sensitive issues, like police brutality and mental health.
Absolutely.
It's really eye-opening.
Yeah. It makes you wonder how much of Officer Charles's alleged behavior toward Mike was influenced by his personal biases.
That's a really good question.
You know, could his dismissive attitude toward police brutality have played a role in his later interactions with Mike?
It's certainly a valid question.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, it highlights a critical issue.
Yeah.
The potential for personal prejudices to impact police conduct.
Absolutely.
Especially when dealing with individuals who have a history of trauma related to law enforcement.
Mike's story really underscores how crucial it is for law enforcement officers to receive training on mental health awareness, de-escalation techniques, and recognizing their own implicit biases. It's so important. These tools can help prevent situations from spiraling out of control and ensure fairer treatment for everyone.
Exactly.
Regardless of their past experiences or perceived vulnerabilities.
You're absolutely right.
So as we delve deeper into Mike's story, we see these intersecting themes emerge.
Yeah, what are they?
The enduring impact of trauma, the complexities of mental health, and the urgent need for greater accountability and transparency within law enforcement.
It's a lot to unpack.
It is.
But it's so important that we're having these conversations.
Yeah, but amidst these heavy topics, there's also a glimmer of resilience in Mike's narrative.
I'm curious, what do you see as a sign of resilience in Mike's story?
Well, despite the challenges he's faced, Mike actively seeks professional help to address his mental health.
Good for him.
He recognizes the impact of these traumatic events and takes steps to manage his PTSD, manic depressive disorder, and IED.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That takes a lot of strength.
This willingness to confront his struggles head-on speaks volumes about his inner strength.
That's an excellent point.
Yeah.
Seeking help is often a sign of strength.
It is.
Not weakness.
It is.
By acknowledging his need for support and taking proactive steps to address his mental health.
Right.
Mike demonstrates an incredible capacity for resilience.
Yeah.
And it highlights another crucial takeaway from his story. The importance of access to mental health resources.
Yeah.
It's essential that individuals like Mike, who have experienced trauma, have access to quality care and support systems that can help them navigate the challenges they face.
Absolutely.
This means advocating for better mental health services, reducing the stigma surrounding mental illness, and ensuring that those who need help can readily access it without judgment or financial barriers.
It's so important.
It really is.
We'll be back next week with the conclusion of Mike's story.
I can't wait.
It's intense.
It is. You know, it seems like we often hear stories like Mike's framed within larger movements and statistics. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
But focusing on an individual experience like we're doing here really brings home the human cost of these systemic issues.
Absolutely. This deep dive hasn't just been about understanding what happened to Mike. It's been about trying to grasp how those events have shaped his life and worldview.
Totally.
So what stands out to you as like the most impactful takeaway for our listener?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
For me, it's understanding that trauma can have a lasting impact.
Yeah.
Shaping someone's perceptions and reactions for years to come.
Right.
You know, Mike's high school experience seems to have created this deep-seated fear and mistrust of law enforcement, which may have influenced his behavior in the Fort Worth incident.
Totally. It's like he was carrying that past trauma with him, and it became a lens through which he viewed those subsequent encounters with the police.
Exactly, and it underscores the need for greater sensitivity and awareness from law enforcement.
Right.
When interacting with individuals who may have experienced trauma, it's about recognizing that past experiences can shape someone's present behavior and responding with empathy rather than aggression.
Totally. Mike's story also highlights the importance of individual agency.
Oh, yeah. How so?
Well, even though he faced those systemic challenges, like the alleged cover-up in high school and the lack of complete documentation in the Fort Worth incident, he didn't remain passive.
Right.
He sought help for his mental health and fought to have his voice heard.
His actions demonstrate that even in the face of adversity, individuals have the power to seek support, advocate for themselves, and challenge systems that fail to protect them.
It's inspiring, you know?
It is.
It's a reminder that change often starts at the individual level.
Absolutely.
With people choosing to stand up for what's right and demand accountability from those in power.
That's a powerful message.
It is. So as we wrap up this deep dive into Mike Torres' story, it's clear that this isn't just about one man's experience. It's a microcosm of those larger societal issues we need to address.
It's an invitation for each of us to reflect on our own biases.
Right.
Challenge injustice when we see it, and advocate for a more equitable and compassionate society where everyone feels safe and respected.
Mike's story is a call to action for all of us.
It really is.
It's a reminder that individual stories matter, and they have the power to spark meaningful conversations and drive positive change.
So as you go about your day, ask yourself, how can you contribute to creating a world where experiences like Mike's are no longer the norm?
Yeah.
How can you promote empathy, understanding, and justice in your own sphere of influence?
It starts with each of us acknowledging these issues, having those tough conversations, and working towards a future where everyone feels safe, valued, and empowered to speak their truth.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, that's our show for today.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Is this our record? Well, that was fast. Okay.
You heard what I said. Get the fuck away from me. You hit my car with that fucking door.
Oh, shit. Hold on.
Bitch! Who the fuck you hitting on, bitch? Fucking piece of shit! Taser.